I had always walked past the old oak tree at the edge of my village every evening. It stood tall, its branches stretching like long, gnarled fingers toward the sky. The air around it smelled damp, like earth after rain. One night, I noticed something strange. The tree was not in the same place I had left it earlier. I rubbed my eyes, thinking the darkness was playing tricks on me. When I looked again, the tree had shifted slightly to the left. I stepped closer, my heart thumping in my chest. Its roots seemed to burrow into the soil like they were alive, moving silently. The wind whispered through the branches, sounding almost like hushed voices. I reached out to touch the bark, cold and rough against my palm. Suddenly, I heard a faint cracking sound behind me. I spun around, but there was nothing except the shadows of other trees. When I turned back to the oak, it had moved again. Now it was closer to the path, its roots leaving shallow trenches in the soil. My stomach twisted with fear and confusion. Every night, I returned to watch it, each time the tree in a slightly different spot. The villagers laughed when I mentioned it, saying my imagination was too vivid. I knew they were wrong, but I could not convince anyone. One evening, I followed the tree as it seemed to edge toward the old cemetery nearby. The air grew colder, heavier, and I felt as though someone, or something, was watching me. The ground beneath my feet felt soft and uneven, as if it were breathing. The tree stood perfectly still for a moment, then began to shift again. Its movement was slow, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. I tried to run, but my legs felt glued to the earth. The shadows from its branches stretched like claws across the tombstones. A low rustling echoed from the roots, like whispers in a language I could not understand. The moonlight glinted off its leaves, giving them an almost human-like shimmer. As I stared, I realized the tree was moving not just across the ground, but almost floating slightly above it. A sense of dread settled over me, cold and heavy. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I took a step back, and the ground beneath the tree seemed to tremble. Its branches reached toward me, not violently, but with a slow, patient intent. I could feel something ancient watching me from within the bark. Then I noticed the roots curling upward, forming shapes that resembled fingers. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, yet I could not look away. The wind carried a strange scent, like burning wood mixed with wet soil. The tree shivered and shifted again, closer to where I stood frozen. Something moved within the trunk, as if it were alive in ways I could not understand. I realized I had never truly seen the tree before, it was something else entirely. Its presence was not just part of the forest, it was commanding it. And then, it stopped. But the silence that followed was worse than anything I had heard before. I could feel the weight of 100 eyes pressing down, unseen but aware. The moonlight fell directly on its trunk, and I saw patterns in the bark, faces, twisting and screaming silently. I wanted to back away, but my feet refused to obey. The air grew thick, almost liquid, and the earth around me seemed to pulse with life. The tree began to shift once more, slowly, deliberately, and I understood I was witnessing something impossible. It was no longer just a tree, it was something older, something aware. The forest itself seemed to bend to its will. I took a trembling breath, and the shadows of the branches stretched toward me, reaching. I could hear a faint murmur from the roots, as if the earth itself whispered my name. I realized in that moment that the tree had been watching me long before I ever noticed it. I stumbled backward, my mind screaming at me to run, yet my body felt trapped by invisible roots. The tree's branches twitched as though testing the air, sensing my fear. A shadow flickered across the ground, not cast by the moon, but something darker, alive. The whispering from the roots grew louder, forming words I could not understand, yet my mind somehow recognized their warning. The ground beneath me shivered again, and I lost my balance, falling onto the damp earth. The smell of wet soil and decaying leaves filled my nostrils, suffocating me. I looked up, and the tree had moved closer, its massive trunk now impossibly wide, its bark writhing like a living creature. Its roots twisted toward me, curling and uncurling as though testing whether I was strong enough to resist. I tried to shout, but my voice caught in my throat, leaving only a strangled gasp. A chill ran through me, freezing my limbs, as if the air itself had turned to ice. The forest around me seemed to vanish, there was nothing but the tree and the void it carried. Its branches arched over me like a cathedral of darkness, blotting out the moon entirely. I saw shapes moving within its leaves, faces with hollow eyes staring straight at me. Every instinct I had screamed to leave, yet I could not move, rooted to the spot by some unseen force. The whispers from the roots coalesced into a sound that resembled laughter, low, guttural, and inhuman. A single leaf detached from the branch above and floated toward me. It glimmered unnaturally in the moonlight, like a shard of silver. I reached out, unable to resist, and the moment my fingers touched it, a jolt ran through my entire body. I fell backward, my vision spinning, and I could feel my consciousness being pulled downward, toward the earth itself. The tree shifted again, and this time, it moved faster, impossibly fast, its massive roots burrowing into the soil and dragging it across the ground with a wet, sucking sound. The shadows around me began to writhe, stretching and twisting into shapes I could not name. I heard footsteps behind me, hundreds of them, yet no one was there. The ground cracked beneath the tree's massive trunk, and a low rumble vibrated through the earth, echoing in my bones. A faint green glow began to seep from the bark, illuminating the twisted faces embedded in it. They twisted and screamed silently, eyes widening as though they were warning me of something far worse. I realized then that the tree was not moving randomly. It was hunting something, and for reasons I could not understand, I had become its prey. The wind picked up, swirling leaves and debris into a spiral around the tree, forming a barrier that separated me from the rest of the forest. The ground itself seemed alive, trembling and pulsing in rhythm with the tree. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, vibrating my chest and making my teeth chatter uncontrollably. I could feel the energy of the forest bending toward the tree, as though every living thing had been enslaved to it. The tree shivered, then lurched forward, and I realized I had no choice but to move. I scrambled to my feet and ran blindly, branches clawing at my clothes and skin as I tried to escape. But wherever I ran, the tree had already been, moving faster than my eyes could follow. Every step I took brought me closer to its roots, which now reached out like serpents, tangling around my ankles. The whispering grew deafening, filling my mind with visions of other trees, other creatures, all bound to it, all watching me. My heart pounded in my ears, threatening to burst, yet a strange calm settled over me. I realized that the tree was testing me, observing me, judging whether I belonged to this forest or not. A sudden thought struck me: what if the tree had never been meant to stay in one place? What if it was always searching, always moving, feeding off the fear it generated? I stumbled into a clearing, gasping for breath, and saw the tree in the center. It was enormous now, impossibly taller than I had imagined, roots burrowing deep into the earth and branches stretching like arms toward the sky. The ground around it was scarred, churned, as though no one had ever survived near it. And then I understood: this was no ordinary tree. It was the forest itself, alive, sentient, and eternal. Its bark rippled, and the faces within it turned toward me, silent screams frozen in horror. A branch reached down, brushing my shoulder, and in that touch I felt centuries of history, centuries of pain, and centuries of hunger. I fell to my knees, my mind reeling from the weight of what I had witnessed. The tree shifted again, and I realized with terror that it had not finished with me. It was moving once more, and this time, it was not leaving any space behind. Everywhere I looked, the forest itself was alive, bending and twisting to follow its will. I understood then that the tree had always been here, waiting, moving, watching. And I was now a part of its story, whether I liked it or not. I forced myself to stand, trembling, every muscle screaming in protest. The tree loomed over me, its branches swaying slowly, as though aware of my resolve. A strange silence fell over the forest, heavier than the darkest night. The whispers from the roots ceased, leaving only my ragged breathing. For the first time, I noticed a faint path winding around the tree, faintly illuminated by the moonlight. Something inside me urged me forward, a mixture of fear and curiosity I could not resist. I took a step onto the path, then another, and with each step, the forest seemed to relax around me. The tree did not move this time, it simply watched, ancient eyes hidden in its bark. I felt a strange calm, as if the forest had acknowledged my presence and decided I was not its prey. The path led me through twisted roots and shadowed clearings, but I walked without stumbling. At the edge of the clearing, I saw the first signs of normal forest again: soft grass, singing crickets, gentle rustling leaves. The air grew lighter, warmer, and the weight pressing on my chest lifted slightly. I turned once to glance at the tree. It had returned to the spot I had first seen it, its shifting complete for now, resting in silence. I understood then that this tree was a guardian, a sentinel of the forest, moving not out of malice but to protect something older than I could imagine. A shiver ran through me, not of fear, but of awe and respect. I stepped onto the familiar path leading back to my village. The forest seemed alive yet calm, and I walked through it without feeling its weight pressing down on me. Behind me, the tree remained, a silent observer, rooted yet restless, as if waiting for the next traveler. I would never forget what I had seen: the impossible movement, the whispering roots, the faces in the bark. It had changed me, teaching me that some things are older than time, beyond comprehension, yet not always hostile. I emerged from the forest as dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight scattering shadows across the earth. The air smelled fresh, like renewal, and I felt a strange gratitude toward the tree. It had spared me, allowed me to witness its secret, and I knew I would carry this knowledge forever. The tree remained behind, shifting imperceptibly, alive in ways the world could not understand, a quiet enigma guarding the heart of the forest. And as I walked away, I could not shake the feeling that the forest itself was alive, watching, waiting, and perhaps, one day, I would return.